Today on the American Truck Podcast, wireless HTC Vive is coming to more regions. You can now rent gameplay time on Nvidia's servers. LCS ban amounts have changed. And Razer is working on a laptop with 3 built-in screens. Hello and welcome to the American Truck Podcast with Andrew C.
And Jefferson B.
Well, apparently everyone else has died, so it's just the two of us for this week.
We had a company skydiving event here at Ghost Incorporated this past week.
Yes,
and as you can see, Andrew C. and I just we both had the sniffles. That's our excuse, and that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Yep. Hey, there's nothing wrong with having the sniffles.
Nah, man, it's the winter.
Sometimes that prevents you from having accidents.
This is true. This is incredibly true. But I will say those bronze statues are going to look very nice.
Oh yes, they will be very spectacular looking on our company mantelpiece.
Hey, you know what also looked really good on our company mantelpiece?
A smart toaster.
I was just about to say a smart toaster.
I would love a smart toaster for our mantelpiece.
From the Griffin Technology Company of all places. Like, I mean, these are the people that we know for making
near every little tiny accessory for iPhones and iPods back in the day.
Yeah, I think they still do.
In this case,
and apparently
now getting them into toasters.
Yep, toasters and a coffee maker.
Yep,
and a Wi-Fi mirror. Like, I remember when the smart mirror project was like something that you did because it was cool and because it was like the hacker thing to do. But now that it's like made by Griffin, it just feels so generic right now.
Yeah. Although I feel like you can make your own smart mirror for a lot cheaper than buying a Griffin one.
Possibly.
Since theirs is $1,000.
Oh yeah, you could definitely go cheaper than that.
Yeah.
But hey, everybody's got to make some money somehow, I suppose.
You do. A lot of things at CES. We're talking about how they now had a shiny new Amazon Alexa built in, and Griffin didn't want to be left out, so they were like, yeah, you know what? We made a smart toaster and a coffee maker, and they have Wi-Fi built in, so you can and Bluetooth, so you can see how your toast is doing from your phone.
I feel like this was concocted one day because somebody in the R&D department decided that they didn't want to have to get up from their desk in order to check on their toast.
Props.
So on the subject of some more fascinating news, HTC had an amazing show. Just VR in general. I've been seeing from a couple of smaller startups all the way up to the big guys. We've got some fantastic products that have been coming out here. The first that I really do want to point out is we have a new deluxe audio strap. So what that's going to do is that's going to take all of the weight that was normally on the bridge of the nose of the VR Perspector and move it more towards kind of the back of the head, the top of the head, sort of just distributing out that weight a little bit more, providing a little bit more of a premium feel, as well as what apparently are some very, very nice headphones. Just a nice audio quality. They're circumaural, so they are supraaural, so they fit on top of the ear, as opposed to like my Tritons right now, which fit over my ears, my interestingly small ears. So yeah, we've got a new, hopefully we'll be seeing that soon, as well as, and this is not in our show notes, but there's a new developer's kit for new control surface interfaces. So I was seeing some demos where they took this like little control beacon and screwed it onto the bottom end of a bat, and that bat was now fully tracked in VR. So you could, the MLB has almost every pitch that we have had recordable, record it. So at that point, you could bat against literally any game in MLB history at that point if the data were to flow properly. I saw it on the front of gun props. I could see this going in a bunch of different directions. And right now it feels very beta. It feels very dev kit-y. But I would love to see if we could sort of break down that technology and move it from this sort of like awkward ring crown thing into something that just feels a little bit more natural and a little bit more built into the product. Kind of the biggest thing for me, because I am on this perpetual quest to figure out how on earth we are going to get rid of cables, because I just know in my clumsiness that I will trip over a headset's cabling in some capacity. Even if I'm seated, I'll find a way to trip over it. A Chinese startup called TPcast showed up at the show this week, and they brought with them their flagship product, the TPcast. And the TPcast adapter will clip onto, it sits right about at the top of your head for the Vive, and uses a multi-directional, multi-spectrum antenna configuration, as well as an external battery to stream all of that audio, video, and the reverse input signals of how your head is kind of moving about the space, and relaying that back to the computer. And all of the beta tests that I was seeing of this, beta of course being the development product that they brought to the show to kind of tech demo the technology, was really, really quite fascinating. A very solid connection. You got about a 1.5 hour battery currently, which, I mean, depending on your level of motion sickness, might be plenty for you. But also look forward to seeing a 5-hour battery coming for those really in-depth sessions. And I don't know, man. I feel like we're kind of like on Gen 1 VR, but some of this stuff, especially if HTC can get off the ground, I would love to have like just a rack of like baseball bats and gun props and different like physical objects that not only look cool but are also equipped with VR sensors, so that I could take them into my virtual space. And hopefully we'll be seeing some stuff.
It's almost like the Nintendo Wii kind of accessories that came out when the Wii first came out, that you slipped the controller into, and then that became, how you interacted with the game, but now in a physical atmosphere where you're actually interacting with the game more directly without wires and as many.
Exactly. And I mean, my hope is that, because right now Lighthouse is kind of the big bottleneck for this, because it's such a limited in scope technology, in my opinion. I mean, right now I've seen Lenovo kind of teased at it at the pre-release event for CES with their newer kind of more Gen 2 feeling headset with built-in object sensing and room orienting cameras right into the headset. And so something like that, I feel like, is much more tuned to the user that doesn't have like the spare bedroom that becomes the VR gaming room.
Right.
Which is all well and good. And I think if you have that kind of luxury, more power to you. But I live in a very small apartment. And so I like the idea of having
your space with your regular living space as well as your roommates.
Exactly. So I think if we can start making this more of the, I feel like this is the peripheral accessory. Oh, look at that. We got a way station coming up here. Mm-hmm. You can bypass safely through, though. Hooray. But yeah, anyway, as I think VR moves to be more of the peripheral device that it's destined to be, and as we get more unique control surfaces, are you just driving through because you can?
Yep.
Nice. But as we get more, I think, control devices, we eventually start building this ecosystem, and things fall off, things die, and that's a really sad thing.
Yeah, you'll have a natural removal of things that don't work from the ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of the least, like the most obscure items probably will be the ones that end up being like the most successful.
I really hope so, because I don't want this to just be kind of like a one-man show. I think that there's a lot of need for the smaller companies. Some really interesting stuff even to bring motion tracking into the Android space, because I think that there's a lot that can be said there for kind of having the more portable rig that I might, bring with me to, I almost want to say like bringing with me to the coffee shop. I know that might sound a little bit strange, but the idea of like, I am 3D designer Jeff, and I'm gonna, go to a local coffee shop because I like the atmosphere there, and I'm gonna throw on my VR headset while I'm working on my, oversized Android tablet, working on a small model. I think we're definitely headed into the version 2.0 year, which is all kinds of exciting.
Definitely.
I honestly can't wait to see how we go forward with this, how we go forward with motion sensing technologies and with VR. And once those two converge, I think we're going to see just some great pieces of gaming. And as games get better, oh my goodness, I was seeing so many awesome demos, just even playing in the background, of first-person shooters and physics puzzlers, and even a couple of card games that are played inside of VR. And a lot of these are currently releasing on Steam, which is fantastic because we're getting them into the hands of at least some people. So yeah, huge ecosystem that's being built, and it's coming out of nothing, which is just fantastic.
Indeed it is. And there's another thing that's kind of coming out of, well, the ashes of other things that have came before it, is Nvidia's got a new platform, and it's called GeForce Now, which will be launching in March. Basically, to simplify it, it's an hourly server rental service that's kind of like the way that Steam streaming works, where you can play on a Mac a Windows title as long as you have a PC, or the way Steam Link works and such like that. But it's kind of on a grander scale where you're actually renting server time to be able to play your games on a otherwise incapable machine. So if you want to play, No Man's Sky on your Mac, and you don't have any way of doing that, you can hit up Nvidia. It's a new platform. It's $25, get you 2,500 credits, 10 hours of time on a GTX 1080, 20 hours on a 1060, which is 4 credits per hour or 2 credits per hour. And there you go. You got access to all of your games, and it acts like a regular computer. The latency is not supposed to be too terrible, and or at least that's the early claims of it. And we're going to see more in the future. And Jeff was actually telling me earlier that this isn't the only product in this space.
Yeah. And I should clarify right now with GeForce Now, just to make sure there's no confusion. This is not server time in the traditional sense of like a back-end server that you might host like a Minecraft game on, but this is a full client virtual machine. So basically, you're getting a computer that lives in the cloud, a full-blown desktop gaming rig that exists in the cloud. And so, in addition to GeForce Now, one of the competitors we've seen coming up is a company that I just discovered the other day called Liquid Sky. You can find them at liquidsky.tv. They're currently in a second closed beta that I was 2 brief days away from getting into. So Liquid Sky, if you're listening, can you release my beta key? That would be awesome. And I promise I will give you an honest review. So Liquid Sky, what it's doing is it's giving you a full-blown Windows desktop. So you log in and you get a Windows screen. It looks and it plays like a Windows desktop. It's the same kind of thing where it's a credit service where you do buy credits, or if you are the poor college student, or if you're like me and go home to a parent's house with a relatively decent internet connection, but a many years old traveling laptop, you can play for free. And the way that this kind of works, and the best way that I would explain this is it works like the free tier of Spotify, wherein after watching a couple of minutes of ads, you are basically granted the cost of the credits that you would normally spend for server time, for playtime, basically. So, they're calling right now about 6 minutes of ads, which is about half that of what you'd get in an hour-long TV program for those of you who still have cable, and that gets you up to an hour's worth of playtime. And that's, get in there, your games are downloaded, and you're good to go. And you can repeat this process of 6 minutes of ads to 1 hour of play for up to 3 times per day. So you get about 3 hours per day, which is not bad. Or for like $5 to $10, you will have the ability to purchase credits in bulk and then apply them towards, like we were saying with the GTX 1080 and 1060 system, it will be a tiered kind of, you get what you pay for type model. But yeah, no, I'm super excited for seeing this level of competition. I myself was an OnLive beta user from way back in the day, and absolutely loved the idea of the service, and I think it's great for people who might not necessarily have access to these more higher class gaming rigs. To say that I am excited for this is a bit of an understatement. I am as excited for cloud gaming as I am for VR, and this is a horse that I am totally willing to back here in the future.
Indeed. It definitely fills that kind of little area that, you don't need necessarily all the time.
Or if I am, going back to my VR example of if I'm Jeff the 3D artist, like I'm not going to necessarily have access to a super powered rig to render out my multi-polygon art project. but I can rent a little bit of server time, upload my files, and then have them compressed and rendered down all in the cloud on a really nice piece of graphics hardware.
So just a brief update here to last week. We were talking about the Acer Predator 21X laptop and or desktop thing. We have confirmed it does have an 8-cell 88 watt-hour battery.
That's massive.
And it does also use two 330 watt power supplies. So that means 660 watts of total powerage for that laptop.
Andrew, see how much wattage is currently in your PSU?
600.
Okay, yeah, no, I think I'm about the same.
Yep.
That's nuts.
That's a lot of power. To stay in this kind of category, apparently Razer did not want to be left out with their kind of like beefy laptops that do a whole bunch of things. They showed off a laptop that's definitely a prototype. It's got 3 4K screens built into it.
Speaking of terrifying laptops and monstrosities, this is Project Valerie, I believe this is. And it is 3 4K displays built on top of, here's the interesting thing that you have to keep in mind, it's built on top of the chassis of a Razer Blade Pro. You could hook up a 4th and a 5th display using the mini DisplayPort and mini HDMI and full-size HDMI 2.0 port that are on the side. It's still a full Razer Blade.
So there's definitely a lot of expandability with this type of system here.
It's completely nuts, and I wish that Razer had the opportunity to take it back, which is a very, very sad thing to happen to them, especially since it's literally an engineering prototype.
Yeah, apparently 2 of the prototypes were stolen from their CES table, and if you have any information of that, there is a $25,000 reward.
Wow, man, I hope that is not indicative of the price of this laptop.
No, but it is kind of the thing when it comes down to with potential corporate espionage and whatnot.
True. This is another one of those things where like you almost thought they were joking, and I had a couple of coworkers even in my office as I was watching kind of this unfold who said they had to be joking, but Razer I think might have been joking, but I'll remind the audience here, Pokemon Go was a joke. And I mean, look what happened there. So I think they might be taking themselves a little bit more seriously now.
Very possible indeed. And so there's that. I mean, they said it might cost somewhere around $6,000 if they were ever to make it. Just kind of extrapolating out the cost of what the Razer Blade Pro costs, and given the fact that it's got 3 4K screens and a 1080 in it.
I could see this. Yeah, and we really did hash this out a lot last week, and I'm running into a barrier.
No.
I hit the X wall of doom.
Means if I that was that wasn't an impenetrable barrel. I thought it was going to be a brick.
You almost went 2-wheeling there. It was impressive.
Oh yeah.
I
still ran into stuff, so I guess
true.
I didn't succeed. Yeah.
But anyway, this laptop, while kind of a hack job, is a really beautiful hack job.
Oh yeah, the press images look very nice. But a few more things here. Of course, minor thing. The League of Legends has increased the ban counts for LCS games. If you know anything about League, most of your ranked games have 3 bans, and they're distributed in ban phases, and each team gets basically a back and forth of banning. And there's always been some discussion about how there are more champions in game than the bans that you are allowed to give, and there are a lot of champions now that are really viable for having that claim of being banned, and as a result, Riot has decided to experiment with a new form of ban phase, where they actually will do 3 bans like current. 3 players will pick their champions, then there will be 2 more bans, and then the last players will pick their champions. So in a typical game, you would have each team would pick 3 bans, and then the rest of the players would all pick their champion. So now you'll actually have each team pick 3. You'll pick champions, and then 2 more bands, and then the last 2 people will pick their champions. So it makes it so that you actually have a little bit more strategy in that if the first 3 people pick something, you can then, if there's a very obvious counter to those first 3 people, either team can then go ahead and just outright ban that counter and really change the dynamic of that game just by that counter player not being able to be in the game. And I think it's probably a really good way of doing this, getting that little bit of extra bans into the game without hopefully not destroying the integrity of the ban system at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. I think while this has the opportunity to be really, really interesting, it also has the potential to be quite volatile.
Indeed. And that is why it's being rolled out at LCS and not everywhere. But in some Nintendo news here, the NES Mini, which is that little cute console that looks like an NES, classic console, but much, much smaller, well, it has been hacked. And as you know, it came originally with like 35 titles, I think. And they said that you could not put any more titles on it. There was no titles that could be added. It came the way that it shipped. They figured out how to put more games on it. So never fear. If you search on Reddit, you'll find an entire article about how to hack your NES Mini and how to cram more ROMs on it.
So what they're doing is they are booting the chip that's on it into kind of like a fail-safe mode is really the easiest way to describe it, and then using some tools that were collaborated by, it's a series of Russian, American, and German hackers who have kind of bonded together over this project in order to create this piece of software that you run and say, hey, I'd like to add these games, I would like to remove these games, and then you just kind of press go. And, Bob's your uncle. You got it. So, yeah, it is a wonderful process.
Indeed.
And I look forward to seeing sort of what is the next step for people as they play around with kind of a nice little cheap piece of tech.
Indeed. And with that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the American Drug Podcast. If you like it, make sure you hit that like button down below. Perhaps also leave a comment or hit the subscribe button, and we will see you guys in the next one.